Welcome back to Million Podcasts, the show where we help you grow, monetize, and market your podcast. Here's a question for you. What if the reason sponsors keep saying no isn't your podcast? It's your media kit? Because here's the truth. Most sponsors decide whether they're interested before they even listen to your show. They open your media kit, spend a minute or two scanning it, and make a decision. So, what should a media kit actually include? What numbers matter? What do sponsors ignore? And how do you build one that makes brands trust you, even if you've never had a sponsor before? That's exactly what we're covering in this episode. We'll walk through what a podcast media kit is, what real media kit examples look like, the pages every sponsor expects to see, how to present your audience and pricing, and the small details that can make the difference between getting ignored and getting a reply. So let's get started. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is a podcast media kit? A podcast media kit is the document sponsors read before they decide whether your show is worth considering. It answers four simple questions. Who is your audience? What numbers support your show? What sponsorship options do you offer? And what does it cost? Sponsors don't spend hours reviewing every podcast. They usually scan a media kit in under 2 minutes to see if your audience matches their ideal customer. If your kit is clear and well organized, you make a strong first impression. If it's confusing or missing key information, most sponsors simply move on. Now that you know what a media kit is, the next question is, what does a good one actually look like? The answer depends on the size of your podcast, but the overall structure stays the same. For a beginner podcast with under 1,000 downloads per episode, don't focus on download numbers. Focus on your niche. A clear positioning statement, a simple audience profile, and 2 straightforward sponsorship packages are enough to build trust. For a mid-tier podcast around 1,000 to 5,000 downloads, sponsors expect more proof. This is where you include audience demographics, engagement metrics like click-through rates or listener emails, and a 3-tier sponsorship package. And for established podcasts with 5,000 or more downloads, past sponsorship results become your biggest selling point. Instead of just showing engagement, show real campaign outcomes like link clicks, promo code redemptions, conversions, or return on investment. No matter how big your show is, the goal is the same. Give sponsors enough confidence to start a conversation. You'll also find complete media kit templates in the blog, so you can see exactly what a beginner, mid-tier, and established podcast media kit looks like. So what's the first thing you should build? Not the design, the positioning statement. This is one sentence that defines your entire podcast. In fact, everything else in your media kit should support this one line. A simple formula is show name plus who your audience is, plus the problem you help them solve, plus the outcome you deliver. For example, instead of saying a podcast about freelancing, say a weekly podcast for independent UX designers who want to raise their rates. That's much more specific and much more valuable to a sponsor. If you're not sure how to write yours, the blog includes a simple template and examples you can use. Now that you've defined who your podcast is for, the next step is proving that audience actually exists. Sponsors don't just want to know who you say your listeners are. They want evidence. Start with your podcast analytics for details like age, location, and other demographics. Then go one step further by asking your audience a simple question like, what's your biggest challenge related to this topic? Their answers give you valuable insights and language you can use in your media kit. You can also include messages, emails, or reviews from listeners. They show that your audience is genuinely engaged, not just downloading episodes. And to make this section easy to write, the blog also includes a listener profile template you can customize for your own podcast. Now let's talk about something that worries a lot of new podcasters. What if you've never had a sponsor before? What do you actually show in your media kit? The answer is simple. You don't need sponsorship proof yet. You need audience proof. Start with your strongest listener reviews, especially ones that mention a specific episode, lesson, or action they took after listening. Those are far more valuable than a generic 5-star review. Next, include listener emails or direct messages. If someone tells you they tried your advice, bought something you recommended, or asked where they could find a product you mentioned, that's powerful proof that your audience pays attention. If you have data on show notes, link clicks include that too. Even without sponsors, it shows that your listeners actually click and take action. Community engagement also counts, whether that's comments, Discord conversations, Facebook groups, or listener questions. And if you're just getting started and don't have much data yet, ask your audience one simple question in your next episode. Find out what they're struggling with or what products they already use. Those answers will help you build both your listener profile and your engagement proof. The blog also includes examples of what strong engagement proof looks like, so you'll know exactly what sponsors expect to see. Now let's talk about the numbers sponsors actually pay attention to. One mistake many podcasters make is leading with lifetime downloads. That number might sound impressive, but experienced sponsors care much more about your 30-day average downloads per episode because it's the industry standard for comparing podcasts. Calculating it is simple. Take the 30-day downloads from your last 10 episodes, add them together, and divide by 10. Alongside that number, include your growth trend, your completion rate, and your publishing frequency. These give sponsors a much clearer picture of your podcast performance. And here's one tip that's often overlooked. If your completion rate is above 70%, put it at the top. A high completion rate tells sponsors that most listeners stay engaged long enough to hear their ad, which can be even more valuable than a higher download count. The blog also walks you through exactly how to calculate these metrics and present them in a way sponsors trust. So now that sponsors understand your audience, the next question is, what exactly are you offering them? Make it easy by creating clear sponsorship packages. A simple 3-tier structure works best. A starter package for first-time advertisers, a core package that becomes your main offer, and a full partner package for long-term sponsors who want maximum exposure. Every package should clearly answer a sponsor's biggest questions. How many episodes are included? What ad format they'll get? Any extra promotions? How results will be tracked? The price and the delivery timeline. The easier your packages are to understand, the faster sponsors can make a decision. And before you finalize your pricing, compare your packages with similar shows in your niche. You'll find package templates and examples in the blog linked in the description. Now, let's answer one of the biggest questions every podcaster has. How do you decide what to charge? Most podcasters start with a number that feels comfortable. The problem is that almost always leads to undercharging. Instead, think from the sponsor's perspective. If your audience can generate real sales or qualified leads, your rate should reflect the value you create, not just your download count. 3 things can justify charging above average. First, a highly specific niche audience. Second, a strong completion rate because sponsors know more listeners will actually hear their ad. And third, bundled packages that combine your podcast with assets like newsletters or social posts, making the partnership much more valuable. As a general framework, smaller niche podcasts often start around $200 to $400 per month. Shows with 500 to 1,500 downloads commonly charge $400 to $800, while larger established podcasts can charge well into the thousands, depending on their audience and package. And one final tip, don't hide your rates. Sponsors who have to ask for pricing often don't ask. They simply move on to the next media kit. If you want the complete pricing table, examples, and the math behind these rates, check the blog linked in the description. The next thing sponsors want to know is, how will you measure success? If you can't answer that clearly, it's much harder to close the deal. That's why your tracking plan should be part of your media kit, not something you explain later. A simple 3-tool system is enough for most podcasts. First, use UTM-tagged links to track exactly how many listeners click through from your show notes. Second, create custom promo codes that are easy to remember. Sponsors can then track how many sales came directly from your podcast. And third, whenever possible, send listeners to a dedicated landing page built specifically for your audience. That keeps your traffic separate from the sponsor's other marketing channels and makes attribution much more accurate. One extra tip, start using UTM links even before you land your first sponsor. After a few episodes, you'll already have a baseline click-through rate to include in your media kit, giving sponsors real data instead of just promises. The blog also walks through this tracking setup step by step, with examples you can copy. The next thing sponsors look for is brand safety. They're not just evaluating your podcast, they're deciding whether their brand is comfortable being associated with it. A simple content policy in your media kit goes a long way. Let sponsors know that you only recommend products you genuinely believe in. Clearly disclose paid partnerships and avoid any topics or categories that don't align with your show. It's also a good idea to include links to your past episodes and your social media profiles. Sponsors will check them anyway, so making them easy to find builds confidence. Before you send your media kit, search your own podcast online and ask yourself one question. Would everything a sponsor sees make them feel confident about working with you? That's one small step that can make a big difference. By this stage, you've built almost your entire media kit. Now it's time to create the cover page, but here's the twist. Build it last, not first. Why? Because your cover page has one job: to summarize everything inside the kit in under 10 seconds. Include your podcast name and logo, your positioning statement, one high-quality image, your strongest number, whether that's your 30-day average downloads, completion rate, or growth rate, and your professional contact details. Don't overload it with information. A sponsor shouldn't have to scroll or hunt for anything. If your cover page is clean and immediately answers who this podcast is for and why it's worth considering, you've done your job. Remember, this may be the only page a sponsor sees before deciding whether to keep reading. A clear positioning statement, one credible metric, and a professional layout encourage them to continue. A cluttered design or a generic tagline does the exact opposite. The blog also includes a sample cover page so you can see exactly how to structure it. Once your media kit is complete, the final step is presenting it professionally. A clean design makes a big difference. You don't need anything complicated. Just follow 4 simple rules. Use one consistent font pairing. Stick to 2 or 3 colors that match your podcast branding. Leave plenty of white space so the kit is easy to scan. And keep one topic per page instead of cramming everything together. You also don't need to hire a designer. Tools like Canva or Adobe Express have great media kit templates that you can customize in minutes. When it's time to share your kit, avoid sending large email attachments. Instead, send a browser link and create a dedicated sponsorship page on your website so sponsors can always find your latest media kit. The blog covers the complete design checklist and shows you exactly how to share your media kit the right way. Finally, remember this: your media kit is never finished. It should grow as your podcast grows. A good rule is to update it every 90 days. Refresh your 30-day average downloads, replace older episode links, add new reviews or listener feedback, and update your rates if your audience has grown. And every time you complete a sponsorship campaign, add a short result like promo code uses, link clicks, or conversions. Those small updates build credibility with every new sponsor. Think of your media kit as a living document, not a one-time brochure. Keeping it current shows sponsors that your podcast is active, professional, and ready for business. One mistake that costs podcasters sponsorship opportunities is confusing a media kit with a press kit. They sound similar, but they're designed for completely different people. A media kit is built for sponsors and advertisers. That's why it leads with your audience, download numbers, sponsorship packages, pricing, tracking plan, and everything a brand needs to decide whether you're a good investment. A press kit is built for journalists, podcast directories, and award organizers. Instead of sponsorship information, it focuses on your show's story, your host bio, notable episodes, press mentions, awards, and downloadable media assets. Sending the wrong document creates confusion. A sponsor doesn't need a detailed host biography or a list of awards. They want to know if your audience matches their customers. Likewise, a journalist doesn't need your sponsorship packages or rate card. Most podcasters eventually need both, but the order matters. Build your media kit first because it helps you generate sponsorship revenue. Build your press kit later once you're getting media requests or applying for awards. The blog also includes a side-by-side comparison table showing exactly what belongs in each document and when to use them. By now, you might be wondering, what does a complete podcast media kit actually look like from start to finish? Think of it as a 7-page document where every page answers one question a sponsor already has. The first page introduces your podcast with your logo, positioning statement, strongest metric, and contact details. The second page explains exactly who your audience is and why they're valuable. The third page backs that up with numbers like your 30-day average downloads, completion rate, growth trend, and publishing schedule. The fourth page proves your audience is engaged using reviews, listener messages, link clicks, or other real examples. The fifth page is where sponsors usually make their decision. It clearly lays out your sponsorship packages, deliverables, pricing, and timeline. The sixth page removes any remaining doubts by explaining how you'll track results and your approach to brand safety. And the final page makes it easy to get in touch and start the conversation. The goal isn't to impress sponsors with a beautiful document, it's to answer every question they have before they need to ask. If they can understand your audience, your value, and how you'll deliver results in just a few minutes, your media kit is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And if you'd like to see a complete 7-page example, you'll find the full template in the blog linked in the description. Before we wrap up, let's answer some of the most common questions about podcast media kits. The first question we get is, what should a podcast media kit include? A complete media kit should include your positioning statement, listener profile, key podcast metrics, sponsorship packages, pricing, tracking plan, content policy, and contact details. The next question is, do you need a media kit if your podcast has low downloads? Absolutely. Sponsors care more about a well-defined audience than raw download numbers. A professional media kit can help even smaller podcasts land sponsorships. Another common question is, what's the difference between a media kit and a press kit? A media kit is built for sponsors and focuses on monetization. A press kit is designed for journalists and directories. If you're starting out, build your media kit first. Should you include your rates? Yes. Clear pricing removes friction and makes it easier for sponsors to move forward. How often should you update your media kit? Ideally every 90 days or whenever you complete a sponsorship campaign or your numbers change significantly. And finally, what makes sponsors ignore a media kit? Usually it's because the kit talks too much about the podcast instead of the audience. Sponsors want to know one thing. Is your audience their customer? If your kit answers that clearly, you're already ahead of most podcasters. If you'd like more detailed answers along with templates and examples, check out the full blog linked in the description. Thanks for listening to Million Podcasts. We'll see you in the next episode,